The aroma of fresh basil and garlic filled the small Italian restaurant as Detective Nicole M. McNutt sat alone in the corner booth, her fingers wrapped around a glass of red wine. The soft glow of candlelight flickered across her tired face, casting shadows that matched the weight she carried in her chest. After 16 hours of working a case that had led nowhere, she'd promised herself one quiet meal before heading home to her empty apartment. She'd chosen this place deliberately, Marcello's, tucked away on the quiet side of downtown, where she could blend into the background and forget, even for an hour, about the brutal realities of her job. Her black blazer hung on the seat beside her, leaving her in a simple cream blouse and jeans. To anyone watching, she was just another woman enjoying a Tuesday evening alone. But Nicole could never fully relax. 20 years of living while black in America had taught her that peace was always temporary. She noticed them before they noticed her. Two uniformed officers entered through the front door, their eyes scanning the restaurant with that particular intensity she recognized too well. Officer Leonard D. Wright, tall and broad-shouldered with graying temples, and his partner, Officer Stephen V. Miller, younger with nervous energy radiating from his movements. Nicole's stomach tightened. She'd seen that look before, the look of men on a mission, convinced of something before gathering any facts. Their eyes landed on her table, and her pulse quickened. She watched as Wright whispered something to Miller, both of them now staring directly at her. The other diners, mostly white couples enjoying their pasta and wine, barely glanced up. But Nicole felt the shift in the air, the way oxygen seemed to thin when you became the subject of unwanted attention. The officers approached her table with deliberate steps. "Evening, ma'am," Wright said, his hand resting casually on his belt. "We're going to need to see some identification and search your bag." Nicole's throat went dry. Her designer handbag sat innocently beside her plate of untouched chicken parmesan. Inside it, among her lipstick and wallet, lay the truth that would change everything. "I'm sorry," she said, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. "On what grounds?" Wright's jaw tightened. "We received a report of a theft in this area. You match the description. We can do this easy, or we can do it the hard way." The restaurant had gone eerily quiet. Nicole could feel eyes on her now, curious, judgmental, or worse, indifferent. A white woman at the next table clutched her own purse a little tighter. Officer Miller shifted uncomfortably, his hand moving toward his radio. "Ma'am, we just need to take a quick look. If you have nothing to hide." "If I have nothing to hide?" Nicole repeated, her voice low but sharp. The familiar sting of those words cut through her composure. How many times had she heard suspects say the same thing? How many times had she, herself, used that line? But now, sitting on this side of the badge, those words felt like an accusation of guilt before innocence could even be considered. Walter B. Cook, the restaurant manager, appeared from the kitchen, his white apron stained with marinara sauce. He looked between the officers and Nicole, uncertainty crossing his weathered face. "Officers, is there a problem here?" "Just routine, sir," Wright said without looking at him. His eyes remained fixed on Nicole. "Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time. We need to search your bag. Now." Nicole's hand trembled slightly as she reached for her wine glass, buying herself a moment to think. She could comply. She could reach into her bag and pull out what they'd never expect. But something in Wright's tone, in the assumption of her guilt, in the way he'd approached her without cause or respect, made her pause. She thought of every black mother who'd taught their children how to survive encounters like this. She thought of every case she'd worked where compliance hadn't been enough. "Do you have a warrant, Officer Wright?" she asked calmly, reading his name badge. His face reddened. "We don't need a warrant for a stop-and search based on probable cause." "Probable cause," Nicole repeated, setting down her glass. "And what, exactly, is your probable cause?" Wright's expression hardened, his patience clearly wearing thin. "A jewelry store 2 blocks from here was robbed 30 minutes ago. The suspect is a black female, approximately 5'6", wearing dark clothing and carrying a large handbag. You fit that description. Nicole felt her blood run cold, not from fear, but from the crushing familiarity of it all. 5'6". Black female. Large handbag. The description was so broad it could apply to thousands of women in the city. "So you're stopping every black woman in the area?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with an edge that made Miller flinch. "We're following procedure," Wright insisted, though his voice carried less conviction now. "If you cooperate, this will be over quickly." Nicole glanced around the restaurant. Walter Cook stood frozen near the kitchen, clearly unsure whether to intervene. The other diners had stopped pretending not to watch. Some held their phones, and Nicole wondered if she was being recorded. The thought should have comforted her, evidence of this moment, but instead, it made her feel more exposed. A Latina woman in her 50s, whom Nicole recognized from the name tag as Margarita J. Kirk, one of the servers, approached cautiously. "Officers, I've been working here all evening. I didn't see anything suspicious." "Ma'am, please step back," Miller interrupted, his hand raised. "This doesn't concern you." But it did concern her. It concerned everyone in this restaurant who chose to look away or bear witness. Nicole took a slow breath, fighting the rage that threatened to spill over. She'd spent 15 years as a detective, working her way up through a department that had tested her at every turn. She'd proven herself in interrogation rooms, crime scenes, and courtrooms. She'd earned her gold shield through excellence that was never quite excellent enough, through patience that was mistaken for weakness, through a smile that hid the exhaustion of being twice as good to get half as far. And now, she sat here, being treated like a criminal in front of strangers because her skin color matched a vague description. "Officer Wright," she said, her voice dropping to a tone she reserved for suspects who were about to make a terrible mistake, "I'm going to ask you again. Do you have any actual evidence that I committed a crime? Any eyewitness who placed me at that jewelry store? Any surveillance footage? Or are you just going on a hunch based on my race?" Wright's jaw clenched. "Your attitude isn't helping your situation." "My attitude," Nicole repeated softly, dangerously. There it was, the shift from professional procedure to personal grievance. She'd seen it happen countless times, the moment when an officer's ego became more important than the law. Miller, who had been quiet, finally spoke up, his voice uncertain. "Right, maybe we should call this in. Get some backup or—" "We don't need backup for one woman," Wright snapped, cutting him off. He turned back to Nicole, his hand moving closer to his hip. "Ma'am, I'm instructing you one final time to hand over your bag for inspection. Failure to comply will result in your arrest for obstruction." Nicole's heart pounded, but her hands remained steady. This was the moment, the point where compliance might save her from immediate confrontation but would validate an illegal search, where resistance could escalate into something far worse. She thought of her father, a retired officer who'd given 30 years to the force, who told her on her first day at the academy, "Baby girl, you're going to have to be better than everyone. And even then, some people will never see past your skin." She thought of Catherine W. Buck, her lieutenant and mentor, a white woman who'd fought beside her, who'd once told her, "Don't you ever let them make you small." Nicole reached for her bag. Nicole's fingers closed around the leather handle of her handbag, and she could see Wright's shoulders relax slightly, mistaking her action for surrender. Miller's hand moved away from his radio. The restaurant seemed to hold its collective breath. But instead of opening the bag, Nicole lifted it and placed it deliberately on the table between them, her eyes never leaving Wright's face. "Before I open this," she said quietly, "I want you to know something, Officer Wright. I'm going to remember this moment for the rest of my life. I'm going to remember how you made me feel, humiliated, judged, guilty until proven innocent. I'm going to remember every eye in this restaurant watching me like I'm a criminal." Wright shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am." "I'm not finished," Nicole interrupted, her voice still calm but carrying the weight of 15 years of authority. "I'm going to remember this because I need to remember. Because every day, I make decisions that impact people's lives. I decide who to stop, who to question, who to believe. And if I ever forget what this feels like, I risk becoming exactly like you. She unzipped the bag slowly, ceremoniously. Wright leaned forward, eager to prove himself right. Miller hung back, something like doubt creeping into his expression. Nicole reached inside and pulled out her wallet. From it, she extracted not her driver's license, but her gold detective's badge, letting it catch the candlelight before placing it on the table with a definitive click. "Detective Nicole M. McNutt," she said softly. "Homicide Division. 15 years on the force. 3 commendations for bravery. And until about 5 minutes ago, proud to wear this badge." The silence that followed was absolute. Wright's face drained of color, cycling through shock, recognition, and then something close to panic. Miller actually stepped back, his hand going to his mouth. Walter Cook exhaled audibly from across the room. "I. Detective McNutt, I." Wright stammered, his entire demeanor transforming. The authority evaporated, replaced by desperate backpedaling. "I didn't know. We were just following procedure." The description was vague enough to justify stopping any black woman you saw, Nicole finished for him. "Tell me, Officer Wright, how many white women did you stop on your way here? How many Asian women? Or was I the first person you randomly selected?" The question hung in the air, unanswerable because they both knew the truth. Miller found his voice, though it shook. "Detective, we were just doing our jobs. We didn't mean any disrespect." Nicole looked at the younger officer, seeing genuine remorse in his eyes but knowing that good intentions meant nothing without good actions. "You didn't mean disrespect. Then what did you mean when you approached me without reasonable suspicion? When you demanded to search my property without a warrant? When you threatened me with arrest for asserting my constitutional rights?" She reached back into her bag and pulled out her phone, placing it beside her badge. "Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to file a formal complaint with Internal Affairs. I'm going to document every second of this encounter. And then I'm going to have a very long conversation with your supervisor about what probable cause actually means." Wright's face had gone from pale to red. "Detective, please. I have a family. I've been on the force for 18 years. This was just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding," Nicole repeated, the words tasting bitter. "Is that what you tell yourself? That this was just a mistake? Not the result of bias, assumptions, or the kind of lazy police work that destroys community trust?" Margarita Kirk, the server who had tried to defend Nicole earlier, stepped forward again, her voice steady. "I saw everything. I'll be a witness if you need one, Detective." Nicole met the woman's eyes and nodded gratefully. "Thank you." Wright and Miller stood frozen, 2 statues of regret and fear. The power dynamic had shifted so completely that the restaurant seemed to tilt on its axis. Nicole could see Wright calculating, trying to find a way to salvage his career, his reputation, his narrative. "Detective McNutt," Wright began, his voice taking on a pleading tone, "I think we got off on the wrong foot. If we could just talk about this." "Talk about what?" Nicole interrupted, her anger finally breaking through the careful control she'd maintained. "Talk about how you saw a black woman enjoying a meal and immediately assumed I was a criminal. Talk about how you were ready to violate my rights because you couldn't be bothered to do actual police work." She stood up, gathering her belongings with deliberate movements. The badge still lay on the table between them, catching the light like an accusation. Other diners had their phones out now, recording. This moment would be online within the hour, another viral video of police misconduct, another hashtag, another statistic. But Nicole wasn't thinking about going viral. She was thinking about Terry E. Hadsell, a 16-year-old kid she'd mentored through the youth outreach program. Terry, who wanted to be a lawyer, who carried his college acceptance letter in his wallet like a shield, who'd been stopped by police 7 times in the past year just for walking through his own neighborhood. She was thinking about every time she'd had to choose between being a good cop and being a black woman, between loyalty to the badge and loyalty to her community. You know what the saddest part is? Nicole said, her voice softer now but no less intense. I became a cop because I believed in justice. I believed that good people in uniform could make a difference. But then I have experiences like this, and I wonder, how many other officers are out there, making the same assumptions, stopping people who look like me, like my family, like my friends, and never having to face a badge that forces them to see their mistake. Miller looked like he might cry. Detective, I'm sorry. I really am. I should have questioned the stop. I should have. You should have done your job correctly from the beginning, Nicole finished. She picked up her badge, feeling its familiar weight in her palm. This piece of metal had defined her adult life, had given her purpose and authority, had opened doors and closed others. But right now, it felt heavier than ever. Walter Cook approached cautiously, his hands wringing his apron. Detective McNutt, your meal is on the house tonight. And I'm deeply sorry for what happened in my establishment. If there's anything. There is something, Nicole said, turning to him. You can train your staff on what to do when they witness potential racial profiling. You can put up a sign that says all customers are treated equally here. You can make sure that the next time something like this happens, someone speaks up before it gets this far. Cook nodded vigorously. Yes, absolutely. I'll do that. Nicole turned back to Wright and Miller. Wright was sweating now, the reality of the situation fully sinking in. His career hung in the balance, dependent on how she chose to handle this. She could bury him with a formal complaint. She could go to the media. She could make him an example. Part of her wanted to. Part of her wanted him to feel every ounce of the humiliation, anger, and exhaustion she felt. But another part, the part that still believed in redemption, in growth, in the possibility that people could learn from their mistakes, hesitated. Officer Wright, she said finally, I'm going to give you a choice. The same choice you gave me when you walked through that door. Easy or hard? The easy way, you report this incident to your supervisor yourself. You request bias training. You write a formal apology not just to me, but to every person you've ever stopped based on assumptions rather than evidence. You become better. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. The hard way, I file the complaint, this video goes viral, and you become a cautionary tale. Your choice. Wright nodded, his Adam's apple bobbing as he swallowed. The easy way. I'll do the easy way. Good, Nicole said. She looked at Miller. And you, Officer Miller. You're young. You still have time to decide what kind of cop you want to be. Do you want to be someone who follows bad orders because it's easier? Or do you want to be someone who speaks up when something isn't right? Miller met her eyes, and she saw something shift in his expression, a resolve forming. I want to be better, detective. I promise. Nicole nodded slowly. Then prove it. Not to me. To yourself. To the people you're supposed to serve and protect. Nicole gathered her blazer and purse, preparing to leave, but Wright stepped forward one more time. His voice was barely above a whisper. Detective McNutt, can I ask you something? She paused, her exhaustion written across her features. What? How do you do it? Wright asked, genuine confusion in his eyes. How do you wear the badge knowing what it's like to be on the other side? The question hit Nicole harder than she expected. It was the question she'd been asking herself for 15 years. The question that kept her up at night when she had to arrest someone who reminded her of her brother, her cousin, her father. The question that haunted her every time she put on her uniform. She turned to face him fully, and for the first time since the confrontation began, her expression softened slightly. I do it because someone has to. I do it because if people like me don't become cops, then people like you are the only ones making the decisions. I do it because every time I show up to a crime scene, I might be the only person there who understands what it means to be both the protector and the protected, the officer and the suspect. Nicole took a breath, feeling the emotion rising in her throat. But honestly, Officer Wright, some days I don't know how I do it. Some days I go home and I cry because I've had to defend a system that doesn't always defend people who look like me. Some days I wonder if my badge is a shield or a burden. The restaurant was completely silent now. Even the kitchen had gone quiet, staff members gathered in the doorway to listen. But then I think about Terry Hadsell, Nicole continued. He's a kid in the youth outreach program. 16 years old, brilliant, heading to college next year. And he's been stopped by police 7 times in 12 months for the crime of walking while black. Each time, he calls me afterward, and I can hear the fear in his voice, the way it chips away at his dreams, his confidence, his future. She looked directly at Wright and Miller. I wear this badge for Terry. So that maybe, just maybe, the next time he's stopped, it's by an officer who sees him as a person first. An officer who remembers a night in a restaurant when they made a mistake and learned from it. Miller's eyes were red-rimmed. I'll remember, Detective. I swear. Nicole nodded. See that you do. She was about to leave when her phone buzzed. Glancing at the screen, she saw a message from Lieutenant Catherine W. Buck, just heard what happened at Marcello's. You okay? Need anything? Nicole smiled despite everything. Catherine, her mentor and friend, who somehow always knew when Nicole needed support. She quickly typed back, I'm okay. Handled it. Call you later. As she put her phone away, she noticed something. The white woman at the next table, the one who had clutched her purse earlier, approached slowly. She was older, maybe in her 60s, with kind eyes that now held shame. Detective, the woman said softly, I want to apologize. When they came to your table, I believed them. I believed you had done something wrong because they said so. Because. She couldn't finish the sentence, but they both knew the rest. Nicole studied her for a moment, seeing genuine remorse. What's your name? Margaret. Margaret Chen. Margaret, can I tell you something? Nicole asked. The most dangerous thing in the world isn't hatred. It's indifference mixed with assumption. You assumed I was guilty because 2 officers in uniform told you I was, and you didn't question it. That's how innocent people end up hurt, arrested, or worse. Margaret nodded, tears forming. I know. I'm so sorry. My son is a public defender. He's going to be so disappointed in me. Then learn from this, Nicole said gently. And teach others. That's how change happens, one person, one moment, one choice at a time. As Nicole finally walked toward the door, Margarita Kirk called out, Detective McNutt. Nicole turned. The server held up her phone. I got it all on video. Every second. If you need it. Nicole smiled, a real smile this time. Thank you, Margarita. Email it to me. She handed over her card. Already done, Margarita replied with a wink. Outside, the cool night air hit Nicole's face, and she breathed deeply. The confrontation was over, but the emotions it stirred would take longer to settle. She leaned against her car, looking up at the stars barely visible through the city's light pollution, and let herself feel everything she'd held back inside. Anger. Hurt. Exhaustion. But also, hope. Hope because Wright had a choice and chose growth over defensiveness. Hope because young Officer Miller had seen something that might change his trajectory. Hope because people like Margarita and even Margaret were willing to witness, to learn, to change. 3 weeks later, Nicole sat in Lieutenant Catherine W. Buck's office, reviewing a stack of files. Catherine, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun, slid a document across the desk. Thought you'd want to see this, Catherine said. Nicole picked it up and read. It was a formal report from Officer Leonard D. Wright, detailing his bias training completion, his voluntary participation in community outreach, and a comprehensive apology letter. Attached was a note from his commanding officer stating that Wright had requested assignment to a mentorship program where he would be supervised by experienced officers who specialized in community policing. He actually did it, Nicole murmured, surprised despite herself. He did more than that, Catherine replied, pulling up an email on her computer screen. He's been speaking to other officers about the incident. Not the details that would violate your privacy, but about the importance of checking assumptions. Apparently, he's become something of an advocate for better training. Nicole leaned back in her chair, processing this information. And Miller? Catherine smiled. Officer Miller requested a transfer to the Community Relations Unit. He's been working with Terry Hadsell's youth program, actually. I hear the kids love him. A warmth spread through Nicole's chest. Change. Real, tangible change. It wouldn't fix systemic issues overnight, but it was something. A ripple that might become a wave. There's more, Catherine continued. The department is implementing new protocols for stops and searches based on descriptions. They're calling it the specific suspicion standard. Officers now have to document more than just basic demographics. They need observable behaviors, specific identifying marks, or corroborating evidence before making a stop. Nicole's eyes widened. That's significant. It is. And Nicole? Catherine's voice softened. It happened because of you. Because you stood your ground, gave them a chance to be better, and followed through. You could have destroyed Wright's career, and no one would have blamed you. But instead, you chose transformation over punishment. That took real courage. Nicole shook her head. I didn't do it for courage. I did it because I was tired. Tired of fighting, tired of being angry, tired of the endless cycle of outrage and no change. Maybe, Catherine said gently. But you did it nonetheless. And now, an entire precinct is rethinking how they approach stops. That's your legacy. Before Nicole could respond, there was a knock on the door. Officer Stephen V. Miller stood in the doorway, looking nervous. Lieutenant Buck. Detective McNutt. May I come in? Catherine nodded, and Miller entered, standing at attention. Detective McNutt, I wanted to update you personally. I've been working with the youth program for 3 weeks now, and... He paused, emotion catching in his throat. Terry Hadsell told me yesterday that he doesn't feel as afraid anymore. He said having officers who listen, who care, makes him believe things can be different. Nicole felt her eyes sting with tears she refused to let fall. That's good, Officer Miller. Keep doing that work. I will, Miller promised. And Detective? Thank you. For giving me a chance to be better. I won't waste it. After Miller left, Nicole sat in silence with Catherine. Finally, Catherine spoke. You know what I love about you, Nicole? You never stopped believing in redemption. Even when the system failed you, even when you had every right to burn it all down, you chose to believe people could change. Nicole smiled softly. My father told me something when I first joined the force. He said, baby girl, you're going to see the worst of humanity in this job. But don't let it make you hard. Stay soft where it matters. Stay human. I didn't understand what he meant then. But I do now. Catherine reached across the desk and squeezed Nicole's hand. Your father was a wise man. He was, Nicole agreed. He still is. Speaking of which, I'm meeting him and Mom for dinner tonight. Want to join us? I'd love to, Catherine replied. But first, there's one more thing. She pulled out another folder. The department wants to create a task force on bias training and community relations. They want you to lead it. Nicole stared at the folder, then at Catherine. Me? You, Nicole. Who better? You've lived both sides of this. You understand the complexity, the pain, the possibility. You can bridge gaps that most people don't even know exist. Nicole opened the folder, scanning the proposal. It was ambitious: mandatory training for all officers, community oversight panels, regular dialogue sessions between police and residents. It was everything she'd wished existed when she first put on her uniform. "I'll do it," she said firmly. "On one condition. Name it. Wright and Miller are on my team. If they're serious about change, they can help create it." Catherine grinned. "Done. I'll make the calls." That evening, Nicole sat across from her parents at their favorite soul food restaurant. Her father, retired Detective Marcus McNutt, studied her with those knowing eyes that had guided her through every major decision in her life. "I heard about what happened at Marcello's," he said quietly. "Your mother and we've been worried." Nicole reached across the table and took both her parents' hands. "I'm okay, Dad. More than okay, actually. I'm hopeful." Her mother, Diane, squeezed her fingers. "That's my girl. Never letting the world dim your light." "I learned from the best," Nicole replied, smiling at them both. As they ate and talked and laughed, Nicole felt something shift inside her. The weight she'd carried for weeks, maybe years, felt lighter. She couldn't fix everything. She couldn't undo every injustice or heal every wound. But she could do something. She could be a bridge, a voice, a catalyst for change. Her phone buzzed with a text from Terry Hadsell, Detective McNutt. "Officer Miller helped me practice for my college interview today. I think I nailed it. Thank you for everything you do." Nicole showed the message to her parents, and her father's eyes crinkled with pride. "That's what it's all about, baby girl. One life changed, one heart opened, one moment of justice at a time." "One moment at a time," Nicole echoed, raising her glass. To change, to hope, and to never giving up on people's ability to be better. Her parents raised their glasses too. "To change," they said in unison. As Nicole drove home that night, she thought about the journey from that humiliating moment in Marcello's to this sense of purpose and hope. She thought about Wright, learning to question his assumptions. About Miller, finding his calling in community service. About Margaret Chen, who'd sent her a thank you card for teaching her to witness and speak up. About Margarita Kirk, whose video had protected Nicole's truth. She thought about Catherine, who'd fought beside her. About Terry, whose dreams were still intact. About her parents, who taught her that strength and compassion weren't opposing forces but complementary ones. Nicole pulled into her driveway and sat in the quiet car for a moment, holding her badge up to catch the streetlight. It was still heavy. It would always carry weight. But now, it also carried possibility. She'd worn it through shame and anger. She'd questioned it, resented it, almost rejected it. But tonight, she wore it with renewed purpose. Because change was possible. Not easy, not fast, not guaranteed, but possible. And sometimes, possibility was enough. Thank you so much for watching this story of Detective Nicole McNutt, a powerful reminder that change begins with courage, compassion, and the willingness to see humanity in every encounter. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you think differently, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Your voice matters, and your perspective adds to the conversation we're building here. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a like. It helps more people discover these important narratives. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful story. We're building a community that believes in justice, redemption, and the power of human connection. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, whether it's a friend, family member, colleague, or anyone who believes in the possibility of positive change. Remember, every comment, like, and share helps spread this message further. Together, we can create conversations that lead to understanding, and understanding that leads to change. Until next time, keep believing in the power of compassion, the strength of speaking up, and the possibility that tomorrow can be better than today. Stay inspired. Stay hopeful. And I'll see you in the next story.